AITA for telling my sister that I'm not willing or capable of taking care of her two severely special needs children in the case of her death. A little backstory, I'm 20F, my sister is 29F, and a single mother of two non-verbal severely autistic children, a level of severity in which it's doubtful they'll ever even have limited functioning in society, even with full-time therapy. She divorced their father about 5 to 6 years ago, and the children are now 9 and 10. Their disability is intensely severe, and I work full-time as a caretaker to assist in their upbringing and daily needs. I have stated multiple times that I don't want children now and don't know if I ever will, partly because I've seen how severe some disabilities can be and don't think I would be mentally or emotionally capable of handling the worst-case scenario. My sister loves playing the what-if game, and today she's been asking me if I love my niece and nephew and trying to figure out how I can say I love them if I'm not willing to care for them in the case of her death, and kind of insinuating that I'm an asshole for not being willing to do so. I do love them, but I'm mentally exhausted each and every day I leave work just after a few hours of being around them and their extremely demanding needs. Being in a caretaker position has brought about extreme increases to my anxiety and depression that I've struggled with for years. In the case of my sister's death, I feel that I have no right legally or otherwise to take care of her children when her ex-husband has a good-paying military job and a wife that stays home every day raising his other two kids. Legally, the children would go to him as his responsibility, not me, a struggling college student living at home with my parents. TLDR AITA for telling her that her children aren't my responsibility and that me loving them doesn't mean I'm willing to sacrifice my life and future for a lifelong obligation of raising and watching over them. Adding an edit: some of you have expressed your concern for my mental health and a job I dislike. Thank you for that. I do want to ease concerns by explaining that I'll be leaving the job and finding a new one in a different field this fall once I complete my bachelor's degree. I took this as a temporary position for the 2 or so years I needed to finish the degree, as it pays higher than most jobs I could find. My sister knows of my intentions and gives me mental health days when I ask, so it's mainly just a status of aunt that has given her preconceived notions and hope that I'd step up for the children, despite what I've told her in the past. NTA. Even if they weren't disabled, NTA. You're right, they belong with their dad if that does happen. NTA. Some people just cannot cope with severely disabled kids, no matter how much they may love them. Also, you're young and have your life ahead of you. It's selfish of your sister to want to tie you down like that. Why is she so against the kids going to her ex's care? NTA kind of insinuating that I'm an asshole for not being willing to do so. You can flip this around on her. How can she say she cares about you if she's demanding that you give up your life to service her children? The responsibility of children falls solely on the parents. They have a father, he can be her backup. Why should he not have to put in any effort in taking care of the kids he helped create? NTA. At the end of the day, it would be irresponsible to take on the position of their full-time caretaker if you don't feel mentally capable. In the end, it would be a bad situation for all of you. Sometimes you have to make the difficult choice of saying no. NTA. I wouldn't leave my kids to someone who doesn't want kids. You didn't choose to have kids, she did. Dealing with kids is already very emotionally draining, and now to think of taking on 2 children with severe disabilities. Who can blame you for not wanting to do so? NTA. Consider if anyone should be responsible for someone else's child in case of death. You can even love children and not want to be a parent. Wow, I know. This stance doesn't change whether you're related or not. Would she think you should if you weren't related? Aside from that, if your job is very draining and stressful for you, maybe you need to take a break, if possible. NTA. Not your responsibility. I am full-time guardian and state worker to my non-verbal sister with DS. I've approached my wife about guardianship a couple times, and she vehemently turns it down each time. She just doesn't want that possible burden in the future, and it's not my place to put it on her. If your sister did die and nobody was claiming guardianship, the state could claim it and provide them with a worker or group home environment. People who don't actually know what these facilities or programs are like will tell you they're awful and do anything to keep their children or family away from these facilities, but I guarantee most special needs guardians provide a worse quality of life than special needs workers and volunteers would. So don't let her guilt trip you. NTA. Don't borrow trouble from tomorrow. NTA. If your sister is truly worried their dad won't take them, then she needs to look into realistic options so they don't end up in a shitty place. NTA. I have one son who is now 24 who has severe autism nonverbal. When he was 12, he went to a residential school because of his behavior. He was too dangerous to me and his siblings, and well, everyone. When he was 18, he moved into a group home in the same city where his sister lives. He still lives in the group home and has a happy and independent life, as much as he can. My husband, his dad, and I are his legal guardians. I made it clear that his sister was never to be his immediate guardian. Our wills are set up so that if something happens to both my husband and me, my husband's sister will become his guardian. If something happens to her, then one of my sisters is designated as legal guardian. After that, if he is still alive and our siblings aren't, then his sister becomes the legal guardian. By the way, my husband and I are 53, his sister is 2 years older, and my sister is 4 years younger, so we are all much more established in our lives than someone who is 20 or even 26, like my daughter. NTA, and I think your sister is a massive jerk for even suggesting this. They have a father. Why is she laying this what if on you? It's so horrible. Have you considered discontinuing your work with her children and getting a less stressful job? Surely, there must be some job you could get that wouldn't be so high pressure. Live your life. NTA, they are her children, not yours. NTA, this whole if you can't care for disabled children, you're a monster idea is fucking terrible. We try to pretend that no one is a burden, but realistically to someone who isn't equipped it's a pretty big fucking burden. NTA, taking on someone's children, even without special needs, is a lot to ask. NTA. Not your kids, and your sister shouldn't try to saddle you for life with 2 severely handicapped children, that's completely unjust. How would you be able to have a social life or have kids of your own, if you so chose? NTA, and your sister is tougher playing a what-if game than being unpleasant about the answer. You are already supporting your sister massively in the day-to-day. It's preposterous that doesn't feel like enough love or commitment, but whatever. If she wants to talk about planning in the event of her death, she needs to accept people's feelings and ability to step forward. And indeed, she might want to think seriously about the long-term plans because we will all die one day, and she should know that you may not be around to take all that care on. NTA. I'm autistic, if high-functioning and completely capable in society. Do your mental health a favor and get out of taking care of them as soon as you can get a better position. Interacting with severely autistic people on a peer-to-peer basis was bad enough, as I had nothing in common with them. Taking care of them I can't imagine as being any easier. Godspeed op. Good luck with your degree. NTA. Too many people take on the responsibility of children, disabled or not, without considering the ramifications. Your decision is best for your sister's children whether she accepts it or not. NTA. I'm 25. I started my family young, and I have 3 kids with AUTISM, 1 with both ASD ADHD and some delays. It's hard. None of my kids are nonverbal or guaranteed to be dependent on an adult forever though, it is likely for my middle child, depending on how things go. None of our family members are required to take them if we die. My oldest is not expected to be responsible for her younger brother if we die. We will make the necessary arrangements for him to live in a facility when the time comes, if he needs it. Because this is fucking hard, even if we feel the pros outweigh the cons, and they do, and it is not fair to out that pressure on anyone else. NTA. Someone else close to me has a child with autism. Their child is no verbal and actually screams for 12 hours straight, as well as destroys the house. It's exhausting on the family, but this isn't, as best as it sounds, what you signed up for. You did not decide to have a child, you stepped up as a caretaker, which is a difficult job. You should be allowed to live your life, you're young and under no obligation to care for someone else. Your sister pressuring you to take on a full-blown parental role makes her ta. NTA. First off, these kids have a father. You are right that legally, he is the one who would get custody. Second, you can love them and not want to be their 24/7 caretaker. You deserve to live your life. These kids are not your kids. 2 are not responsible for them. NTA. Ask your sister this question. If she could go back in time and tell herself what her future would be like, would she still have kids? Would she pick this outcome for her life if she knew in advance that she would end up divorced with 2 disabled kids? Then ask her why she would expect you to choose this future. I think it is very selfish for her to expect you to choose this same fate. You deserve to make your own choices and have your own life. It doesn't mean you don't love them. NTA and your sister needs to check herself because insinuating you don't love them if you won't take them for life to guilt you into doing what she wants is messed up. NTA, how can she say she loves you when she's willing to try to guilt you into taking on a responsibility you have no obligation or desire to? See, I can twist words too, and in an immensely shitty thing to do. Your sister is definitely tough for that alone. NTA. The children have a father who can, and should, be in their lives. NTA, but she is for trying to make you feel guilty about this. NTA, I have 3 nieces that I love and only one has pretty mild special needs. I honestly wouldn't even count it as an issue, and I told my sister the same thing. She understood immediately. She knows that I'm not mentally capable of dealing with 3 kids as a full-time mom, I'm bipolar, and she respects that. When you have kids it is your choice, it's great if family can step up, but it shouldn't be expected. Though obviously if it were me or foster care I would take my nieces, but I know it wouldn't come to that since they have a big family. NTA, you know your limits, and this gives her an opportunity to make a solid plan to provide for the children she brought into the world. NTA, you know what you're capable of and what you're not, and it sounds like you're not capable of caring for these children for what will most likely be the rest of your life. My husband and I faced a similar situation. His brother has 3 children, one of whom is special needs, and will most likely never be able to live totally on his own. We talked about if we were willing to take the kids in should something happen to his brother and Sil, and we decided that it was really far beyond what we could handle, even more so once we had children of our own. We are simply not prepared emotionally, mentally and most of all financially to meet his needs. Thankfully, they were able to make other arrangements, and now 2 of the 3 kids are over 18, so it's pretty much a moot point. It's a difficult situation all around, but as is often said on Reddit, you can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. None of us are financially well enough to contribute to anything like that, she's hardly making ends meet, and our parents contribute where we can. It would be a wonderful thing to have though. NTA, it's a challenging job to care for kids with this level of needs, and not everyone is made to handle it. They have a father and that's who should take care of them in the untimely and, hopefully, rare event of your sister's passing. Hi, physically disabled autistic person here. You are definitely NTA. Raising children is not for everyone, especially when you add in disability caretaking. It would not be good for the kids to be under the care of someone who wouldn't be able to handle the worst-case scenario. That doesn't make you an asshole in any way, shape, or form. Even if you love your sister and her children, you are under no obligations to take care of them, should she not be able to. That doesn't make you ableist either. With disabled children, you take on both being parent and caretaker, both of which are hard enough on their own. Not everyone can do it and that's perfectly alright. NTA. But how you need to word this is you love them, and that's why you don't want to be the guardian, because you are confident you are not up to the task. That being said, here is something else your sister needs to get on right now. Life insurance. Raising these kids, whoever would have that responsibility, will cost money. Whether to hire professional help or quit their job to tend to them. In either case, the new guardian will need lots of money. She better have a solid life insurance policy taken out on her own life, and me whoever the would-be guardian is, as the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. For 2 special needs kids, she ought to get $2 million and as long a term as she can afford. 30 years is preferable. Do some research for her, maybe even get some preliminary quotes prepared for her. This will show her you do care and will help in your own way. NTA and OP, save yourself, you are too young to be committed to doing this forever. This reminds me of a friend of mine who has had to care for a disabled mother since his teens. When the disability started, he slotted into the role of primary caretaker because sister was in college on her own and father was sole breadwinner. Now, we're in our 30s and even though sister is actually living back home and his father is into retirement age and doesn't work nearly as much, he is still the main day-to-day caretaker because at this point he's just better at it. Because of that he has never really started his career, has always lived at home. In short, it has totally dominated his life. This has been going on for around 20 years, and the rest of the family doesn't pull the weight he does. If you are 20 and the kids are 9 and 10, it sounds like you got roped into this before you were able to make any informed decision on what your life and career would be like, and now your family now just expects you to continue. Do not let your family manipulate you into sacrificing your own well-being because it's more convenient for everyone else, because the longer you play the role the harder it will be to get out. I am not saying your family is necessarily manipulating you, and I don't know what share of the burden they carry, but clearly your sister is grooming you. NTA. 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 Regardless of their disability, it is not your responsibility to be their caretaker in the what-if situation. I love my cousins, my nieces and nephews, but I would not be their full-time caregiver. They aren't mutually exclusive feelings. NTA. Just maybe don't bring it up with your sister or anything. NTA. I get she's scared of what would happen to her kids. All parents are, and I'm sure it's harder with special needs kids. But it's wrong to say you don't love them because you aren't willing to raise them. That's extremely unfair. You're a good aunt and caregiver, and that's plenty of love there. NTA. Kids are their parents' responsibility, and even if your sister died, you wouldn't have to take care of them if you didn't want to. They would be their dad's responsibility. NTA. You didn't choose to have these kids, she did, and of course their father should step up. How is that even a question? And frankly, it's a total shithead move to imply you don't love them. Between that bullshit and the deficits to your own well-being, is this really a job you want? All things being equal, would you choose this above all other careers? It might be time to stop setting yourself on fire to keep an unappreciative person warm. NTA. If she dies, they go to their father. NTA. You definitely aren't responsible for her choices. Children like that would be a massive burden, and it's good that you know your limits. NTA. You have no obligation to take care of her children. She should respect that you're self-aware enough to know you don't think you can handle the responsibility of children. Does she really want someone who isn't willing or capable to take on the responsibility? You can love someone and not be able to take care of them. NTA. Even if they were perfectly healthy kids, you still wouldn't be the asshole not to want to take them in. That is your decision. NTA. At all. You have to be honest about these things. My kid has no disabilities, and I still ask people before I name them guardians. However, sounds like your sister's going to break soon. NTA. Family is family, but those kids aren't yours, and you're an extended family member. If your sister dies, the kids should go to the father or one set of grandparents. It should only be you if both of those aren't options, and even then it'd be a choice. You don't owe your sister any form of sacrifice just because she spread her legs. If the kids are as high on the spectrum as you suggest, it would definitely be a massive sacrifice to take them on. Your sister seems an asshole for expecting you to take on the very kids that have scared you off from having your own. NTA. You didn't have those kids, they are not your responsibility or cross to bear. NTA. But I would suggest a compromise that gives her peace of mind and allows you to remain independent. You can be designated the guardian of the children and then use that guardianship to place them in appropriate care facilities, access Medicaid waivers, etc. We are special needs parents, and when we realized our kiddo wasn't going to be able to live independently, we immediately set up a special needs trust, spoke to our family members and social workers, and made a plan. Our plan includes having a trusted family member and backups made her guardians in the event of our deaths. Her guardians will then be able to use the trust, funded with life insurance, retirement accounts, and Able 529, my book royalties etc., to either A. keep her in our home or their home, or B. help her move into an assisted living facility for autistic adults, or B. a more residential treatment style facility if that is what she needs. Our trust will also deny dollar to her and her guardians in a way that will allow her to access federal programs like Medicaid waivers, SS, etc. to prolong the use of the trust. So I would suggest telling your sister that you cannot be a full-time caregiver, but that you can and will act as their guardians to make sure they are safe and happy. Make sure she has term life insurance. Look into Able 529 plans. Make the ex-pay into some kind of savings for the kids, Able is best. Meet with social workers to make sure the kids are getting all the benefits they qualify for and that they are on all of your state's Medicaid waiver lists for services. Obviously these are US-centric options. I would assume most countries have the same options or similar. Further, her taking some time to plan and make the necessary will and trust will make her feel so much better. I dreaded our lawyer appointments, but in the end, I felt so much better. Oddly, many of our family members did too. They liked knowing there was a plan for our daughter. Nah. It's absolutely the right thing to do to let her know that you're unable to be their caretaker in the event of her demise. Being paid to care for someone as a job is different than having to do it 24/7 365. Caregiver burnout is real. I wouldn't necessarily let this prevent you from parenthood if you truly want it otherwise, but it is wise of you to keep it in mind. NTA. 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 I used to do respite work for caterers. Is there anything like that where you are to give you a break? I know how exhausting it can be, and I wasn't even looking after relatives. You need to care for yourself as well. It might be worth seeing if the council or a charity can help you out. NTA. It's actually better that you're telling her now so she can plan. NTA. The dad needs to help. Also, on a side note, I'm sorry. I've been a full-time caretaker to my brother, so much so that I almost didn't graduate high school. I'm 22 now and I move out after undergrad. I still intend to take care of him after my parents are gone, but I genuinely understand the intense anxiety and depression that comes with it. Also, another source of depression is how you say you don't want kids because of this. I've always wanted kids. Dreamed of having my own, perfect little family. As I got older, I feel like this desire has been stripped from me because I watched my brother grow up with his disability, and the thought of children both scares and exhausts me. I can't imagine going through this again. I spent the first 20 years of my life being a mother. I can't imagine spending the next 20 with no freedom or happiness as well. I feel as though a big part of my life has been taken away from me. NTA. It takes a special type of person to step up and take responsibility for other people's children after the parent's death, and especially for special needs children. Not everyone is cut out for this. She has no right to try to guilt you into doing something that would become the responsibility of the father of the children. If this hypothetical scenario were to happen, the choice should be for who is best able to care for the children. Who has the ability and means, and most importantly the desire to dedicate their life to that task. Your sister should invest in a very large and rather inexpensive at her age life insurance policy and set it up to fund a special needs trust for the children if she really wanted to be sure that they would be taken care of. Automod. The following is a copy of the above post. This comment is a record of the above post as it was originally written, in case the post is deleted or edited. A little backstory: I'm 20F, my sister is 29F, and a single mother of two non-verbal severely autistic children, a level of severity in which it's doubtful they'll ever even have limited functioning in society, even with full-time therapy. She divorced their father about 5 to 6 years ago, and the children are now 9 and 10. Their disability is intensely severe, and I work full-time as a caretaker to assist in their upbringing and daily needs. I have stated multiple times that I don't want children now and don't know if I ever will, partly because I've seen how severe some disabilities can be and don't think I would be mentally or emotionally capable of handling the worst-case scenario. My sister loves playing the what-if game, and today she's been asking me if I love my niece and nephew and trying to figure out how I can say I love them if I'm not willing to care for them in the case of her death, and kind of insinuating that I'm an asshole for not being willing to do so. I do love them, but I'm mentally exhausted each and every day. I leave work just after a few hours of being around them and their extremely demanding needs. Being in a caretaker position has brought about extreme increases to my anxiety and depression that I've struggled with for years. In the case of my sister's death, I feel that I have no right legally or otherwise to take care of her children when her ex-husband has a good-paying military job and a wife that stays home every day raising his other 2 kids. Legally, the children would go to him as his responsibility, not me, a struggling college student living at home with my parents. TLDR AITA for telling her that her children aren't my responsibility and that me loving them doesn't mean I'm willing to sacrifice my life and future for a lifelong obligation of raising and watching over them. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message composed to =r amethysthole if you have any questions or concerns. NTA. However, you should have told her no problem with the knowing that the bio dad would be getting the kids. She would be dead, so what is she really going to do at that point? She would see you as a hero, and you do not have to tell her that her kids are the reason that you do not want your own kids. Win-win all the way around. No, you're NTA, and it's best if she understands your intentions now so she can make other plans, as any responsible parent should. Deleted. NTA. You don't need a reason to say no. If they are as severely affected as you say, there are group homes that specialize in children like that. NTA. NTA. And honestly, in your shoes, I'd tell her that I love them so much I'm not equipped to handle their daily needs, but I will do everything I can to see they are taken care of by someone who can. NTA. 1. NTA 2. My sister loves playing the what if game, and today she's been asking me if I love my niece and nephew, and trying to figure out how I can say I love them if I'm not willing to care for them in the case of her death. Is there a trust set up? My sister is mentally disabled and my oldest sister and I know one of us will have to take care of her, but my parents have a trust set up for her. My father's will also state that any money he has left will pay off the house for his current wife to live in, and anything that is left is to be placed into the trust. The trust allows us to be able to hire someone to care for my sister if needed. If your sister wants to play the what if game, she should be doing her part and not making your life harder. She must not really love any of you if she's not willing to figure out how to do that. NTA. If you don't feel you can handle the needs of severely disabled children, you should not be asked to do that. And if they have a father who is still alive, he would have rights to the children. Is he even involved in their lives now? And should take them in as their parent. NTA. Their dad is in the picture and hasn't given up parental rights, so I'm not sure that she'd be able to give them to you to begin with. It's not even an idea you need to entertain. If that sort of situation came up, you would figure things out then. The husband would have the official say anyway. If he decided to, say, send them to a special care home where they were treated poorly, then you could step in then. Very likely you would just continue to visit and care for them in the aunt way no matter what happens. NTA. It's important to be honest. I was adopted and my mom told me when they were applying for the adoption process, they had to mark off if they were willing to take special needs kids or not. If it's not something you can handle, it's good not to lie. NTA. I'm 18 and if put in a similar situation, I would say the same thing. Allow me to explain, if I wasn't financial let alone mature enough to raise children, no matter how much I love them, I would take them in because I wouldn't be prepared and would rather have them be with someone that can, so they are raised properly. NTA. If she couldn't handle the answer, she shouldn't have asked. NTA. Asking someone to take their kids if they die is a big request when the kids are healthy. Especially if they have a father who's capable of caring for them. If she brings it up again, you can ask her why she'd expect you to take the kids when their dad is still around. NTA. You didn't choose to have children. While they are family, you have every right to opt out of taking care of them in the event something happens to your sister. This is a thing you'd have to be 100% committed to in order to do it right. Kudos for knowing you're not that person. I see nothing wrong with it at all. I'm legally blind and have known autistic children and the challenges they bring, and I can see why it would be hard to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So from one with a disability and from one who has seen other disabilities, NTA. AITA. Obviously JK, I'm not stupid. NTA. NTA. Take best possible care of yourself. Your sister is being very unfair and unkind and emotionally manipulative. It sounds like a massively stressful situation, and I'm glad there's an endpoint in sight for your caregiving job. NTA. Those kids would need someone who is there 110%, and while your love for them might be there, you don't feel you're capable for plenty of valid reasons. Tell your sister to stop being an asshole and picturing her death, or start putting a real plan in place by starting an adult discussion with her ex. Absolutely NTA. You have absolutely no responsibility. Give up your entire life to take care of her 2 kids. What your sister is doing seems extremely manipulative and possibly even probing into whether you'd be willing to do more for her now. Why on earth would she ask you whether you'd take care of them after she dies, when she's only 29? That sounds to me like less of a concern about her kids and more of a probe into whether you'd start being their full-time caretaker for her while she runs off to have fun. I'm sure it's incredibly hard for her to deal with it every day, but she needs to get help from the proper channels that are equipped for it, not expect her family to take on the duty. NTA. You know what you're capable of and those children belong with their father. NTA. You and your sister should look into hiring a professional caregiver for your nephews. Doing all of that by yourselves is mentally exhausting. NTA, and if anything it's more noble of you, and better for the children, for you to be honest and admit it would be too much for you to handle. Not the A at all. If you're unable to care for them or do not want to care for them, it would be better for the children to be cared for by either someone else in the family or a carer who is committed or specializes in disability. That way you both would have a better quality of life. NTA. It is only your obligation if you desire it to be so, better that you are upfront with her about it. NTA. I know a woman who has 5 kids like this, and she keeps popping out more. She's not even thinking about a what if, just keeps trying. NTA. It's always important to keep it real. Imagine how many kids get taken in by people who weren't 100% and end up growing up resented. If you can't do it, you can't do it, and there's no shame in that, especially when they still have a father. NTA. If you can't give these children the care they require, they might thrive better in a different environment. You can still visit them to monitor their care for neglect, but as someone with a disability and who worked with children with special needs, I understand completely. Not as long as your sister accepts your decision without resentment. NTA. I would watch her though, age may try to take the easy way out. NTA. WTF? They should go to their other parent. Their dad. NTA. She's prepping you to take over raising them. What the hell? NTA. And honestly, I would talk to your sister about her mental. It may be normal, but she may also be contemplating suicide and trying to see if her kids would be cared for. I could be wrong though. NTA. I was put in this exact position by my sister. My niece is now a ward of the state and in a group home. I love my niece, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my life for her. I have my own family and I'm not willing to make them suffer. NTA. Even if her ex wasn't around to take over parenting in the event of your sister's untimely demise, it's better that she knows now that you won't be an option when she's making plans for her children's future without her. Also, it just seems gross to put this kind of pressure, even hypothetically, on a 20-year-old. NTA. I don't know why she would want to pass such a responsibility on to you. As you say, they have a father with a good job. As his children, he will always be the one responsible for them. Don't feel guilty for not wanting to curtail your life and becoming their guardian if your sister dies. It's not your place to do so, neither is it your responsibility. NTA. But I do hope you know that with the right supports, both of her children can become high-functioning members of society. They are children right now and learning, and yes, it is hard. It is never easy. Autism is a difficult disorder, but many people with all different levels of autism can be like anyone else. I'm not saying this means you have to care for them though. In the event of her death, to answer your actual question, they probably wouldn't go to their father if they barely know him or the other woman. And I'm not sure if they'd be willing to even take them. I didn't see you mention that. Your sister probably only asked you since you have an understand of them already and know them probably better than anyone else. It's a comfort things to know they will be in the right hands. But that doesn't mean you have to or should if it would be too much for you. They have residential community living options for children with autism where they can stay until they are done with school, and then once they graduate, they will be placed in adult living housing with a state program. In my state it is known as DDA funding, which is a fantastic program. We have people move to the state just to use it. From what I understand, we are ahead of most states with this type of support. NTA. That is also far too high a burden to put on a 20-year-old. Your sister is an asshole for laying her death, and you're having to play parent on you at 20. That's very creep. Sounds like she has a mean streak, all the grosser it's so deep she'd use her children to guilt trip you. Call her out, op. She's too old to be that immature and nasty. NTA. Your sister chose to have kids, not you. There exists absolutely no obligation for you to completely sacrifice your life for her children should something happen to her. Not as long as story are honest with her about it so that she can plan accordingly. I do not see any problem with it. Considering their level of disability, they will likely need to live in a residential program to get the help and support that they need anyways. It does not sound like they will ever be self-sufficient. Your sister will need to check into these options at some point. NTA. You have alleged treason. Their father is still alive if something was to happen to her now and can facilitate care for them. NTA. Yeah, I think they belong with their father. NTA. You don't have a responsibility over other people's children unless you chose to take on that responsibility. Possibly one could argue you have a responsibility for your grandchildren, as it might be included in the responsibility for getting children yourselves in the first place, but that isn't relevant here. NTA. My sister-in-law is severely autistic and nonverbal. My Mill asked if we would take care of her before me and my husband were even married. My husband flat out said no, and I agreed. 7 years later and I still feel that way, even though my Mill was very upset by it. I've seen how hard my in-law's life is, and I'm not willing to live like that. NTA. Children should go to who can care the most and best for them. If you feel you aren't able to handle it, it's best for the children and for you to draw that line, sad as it may be. Their disability is intensely severe, and I work full-time as a caretaker to assist in their upbringing and daily needs. This shouldn't be. There is something wrong with the world. NTA. If anything, you're being truthful and responsible by telling her the truth. Children with special needs can be a lot of work, and it's honest of you to share that. No, you don't have to take on that responsibility. First and foremost, the dad has a legal right to guardianship. That said, I think your sister might actually be looking for confirmation that you love her children more so than anything else. Do you only spend time with her and them when you're working? Do you tell them that you love? It's exhausting for you. Think of how exhausting it is for her too. She's naturally worried for her children's future, since children typically live longer than their parents. On a totally off-base note here, check in on your sister's mental health. NTA. I've worked with people with disabilities special needs for 20 years. Nothing good comes from them having caregivers who are not 100% committed to them and are prepared to alter every aspect of their lives to provide it. You can still be a great support to them without being in that role. NTA. It isn't your responsibility. NTA. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being honest and telling your sister you can't handle it. On the contrary, it is much better to let her know now so that she can make arrangements on the off chance something did happen. That is much better than having her think you will take them and having them end up somewhere random if something happens to her. Not everyone can take care of special needs children, and that is okay. You know your limits, and you were honest. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, just make sure you say it politely, not in a way that makes it sound like her kids are a burden. Just put in on yourself about you not being able to handle it. NTA. Nope, you are just being honest. If you were to take them and just do it because she's your sister, you could be doing more harm than good. The children's well-being come before anything else, top priority. If you cannot commit to this, then honesty is the best policy. NTA. If she's that concerned that something might happen to her and, for whatever reason, the children's father won't be able to take care of them, then she needs to start looking into facilities for her children. It's not right to put that on you. NTA. I remember in college I had friends that were studying to be special needs teacher. I always told them thank you because that is not a gift I have. NTA. You shouldn't be held directly responsible for raising 2 kids if something happens to her. That isn't fair to you. NTA. Disabled or not, if you simply don't want the responsibility of children, that's okay. Kind of insinuating that I'm an asshole for not being willing to do so. NTA. F your sister for being emotionally manipulative. Want to see how much of an asshole I can be? I quit. You're on your own caring for them as of now. I'm gonna go manage my own life. That would be my reaction. NTA. I would probably focus on the capable part though. Genuine question here. In the event of the death of Op's sister, is there any legal way that Op could even be named as the legal guardian? These 2 children have a father who is alive and still in their life. How in the world would Op supersede the father in any sort of legal capacity? Would the mother even be able to name someone other than the father as the guardian? No, except perhaps the father. It sounds like the father ditched the family because he couldn't handle the kids. Note that he now lives a few states away, has a new family, and doesn't have much to do with the kids. It is likely your sister realizes that he might not be dependable if anything happens to her, however, that doesn't mean you should be her backup plan. She also sounds like she has become quite overwhelmed with the responsibility. I raised a child on the high-functioning end of the spectrum, and that was challenging at times. We needed supports. I can't imagine 2 low-functioning children. But you are right, custody would go to their father automatically if anything happens to your sister. Whether, in turn, he puts them in care or whatever is his decision. If he is military, then perhaps your sister needs to go back to court to force him to provide whatever benefits he can get that could be used to support his children. NTA. At this point, you'd be the asshole if you're not very explicit about what you will and will not do. NTA. I have a rude and unpleasant response every single time someone try to gain some advantage over me, vacation periods, better places on restaurantes planes, because of their kids. I did not make your kids. I did not enjoy the sex session where they were made. Why on hell should I pay for it? Works like a charm. Info. When you say your sister was trying to figure out how I can say I love them if I'm not willing to care for them in the case of her death, was she having a genuinely difficult time comprehending this concept? I ask this because her circumstances are so extreme that the idea that these things are mutually exclusive could be her reality. I can only make the presumption that family holds such great meaning to her, since by the sounds of it, it is her entire existence. Happy to be wrong about this. You're NTA regardless, because you absolutely do not have any obligation to raise anyone else's children, but especially as they would have another parent out there, even if the worst does occur with your sister. To play devil's advocate on your sister's behalf, I'm not sure that's Shesta either, although I don't love that insinuation that you're an asshole for saying no. Sounds like she's trying to be a responsible and good mother with 10/10 intentions, but in the end falling flat with the 3/10 execution. Absolutely not excusing her behavior, but rather seeing if there is an explanation for it, which seems very plausible, making this a nah situation. Your mental health comes first. We can't help others if we don't help ourselves or are struggling with our own issues. Throw to a cutaway scene of the in-flight safety demonstrations about the air masks. So, you do you up. Do what you need to do for your own mental well-being and rest comfortably in the knowledge that you don't have to be responsible for someone in order to love it them. NTA. I wonder what the actual quality of life is for the kids if they are suffering. May sound harsh but seems normal to discuss animals and their quality of life but not humans. Nah, I can understand your sis, it's her children and she wants them in trusted hands. At the same time, severely special needs children are no walk in the park, and even a well-off family with a mentally sound and strong stay-at-home mother could struggle with one such child, not to mention two. It's completely understandable that a college kid with problems of her own won't want to suddenly become the single mother of such kids. TBH, even if I myself gave birth to children like that, I would put them up for adoption. I'm simply too weak mentally to take on a burden like this, and I refuse to feel guilty for not wanting to take the responsibility that is too much for me. I'm probably jumping at shadows, but has your sister been acting strange lately? Not bathing as often, over or under eating, anything that might suggest she could be making plans if something were to happen to her. Info. So if your sister died and their father and his wife took them in and neglected them, you do nothing?